Mm-hmm. All right, we
You
ready?
got that thing muted?
Oh, probably. Yeah, always.
Welcome to Books We Never Read.
Except for those we have.
I'm Nicole,
And I'm Jason.
and this is episode 67, where we'll be discussing the whole book, The Mountain in the Sea,
The whole thing
by Ray Nayler.
by Ray Nayler.
Before we get started, please make sure that this is the episode you really intend to be watching, because we talk about the covered portion, in this case, the whole book, as if you have also already read the whole book. So if you haven't read the whole book and you don't want any spoilers, get out. See you later. But go hit up the playlist and get caught up on your previous readings. We have lots of books playlisted for you in the playlist section of our YouTube channel. There's just all kinds of great things. Name one other book they could read if they wanted to.
7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle.
Ooh, it's such a good choice. So anyways, all that is there for you. We are also a podcast on YouTube Music, and our discussion goes off of YouTube onto Goodreads. We are a community at Books We Never Read. There's a join link in the description box below. It'll be good for maybe 15 more days, maybe 7 more days. So those links are only good for 30 days at a time, and I'm not going to keep updating them. So anyways, we hope that you join us in the live chat if you're here with us live, or in the comment section below if you're catching the replay. And Peggy has just confirmed 7.5 Deaths was so good. It was so good.
It was really good. So somebody is going back and watching those videos right now. So I'm glad somebody's reading it. That's really cool.
We need to grab something else that Stuart Turton has written.
Well done.
Gold star.
Yeah. Hey,
All right.
before we get started and everything, of course we're announcing we're putting out the syllabus for our next book today, Verity. But for those of you who are here with us, you should be aware that we will probably have to do something weird with the schedule, just because we have a lot going on over the next month or so. So just be prepared for that. It is what it is.
Might be switching up some dates and times.
All right. Well, where do you want to get started?
Oh, I don't know. So I finished this book on Thursday. And Thursday morning. Thursday at 6 a.m. is when I finished it. And it just echoed through my mind all day Thursday and all day Friday. It was good.
It was really good. I was telling somebody about this yesterday at a party we went to, and I was like, "Look, this book we're reading right now, it has a lot to say, and it's really good." And they're into ecology and sustainability and things like that. I was like, "It has that. I mean, you're gonna love everything about it." And they're like, "Well, how'd you hear about it?" I'm like, I think it was the Barnes and Noble's bestsellers list, right? I think I just pulled it off of there. But I might have to keep going back to that list because that was pretty good. It was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
This isn't really a criticism, I guess. And I did switch, full disclosure. I read most of this book. I switched to the audiobook for the last 12 chapters. And so it may be a difference in medium, but I felt like the book just kind of ended. I didn't feel like there was really any resolution. And I think that is what was intended. What happens to the octopi? Well, we don't really know. Well, what happens to Evram? Well, we don't really know. What happens to Aiko?
He's going to get to stay and live out his life on the island.
Did they find him?
Yes.
I don't remember that part.
One of the monks.
Okay, gotcha.
He said, "You're injured and you're..."
Yes, okay,
and the guy,
I do
he
remember
was
that.
like, "My friend is dead in the boat." And he said, "No, your friend is barely alive, but he's alive.
Sorry.
And you are also really close to dying."
Right, I do remember that part.
They're going to live out their lives on the island. Just best friends, saving the turtles. Yeah. Son has gone back from whence he came.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But regardless, I still feel like the book just it left a lot of open questions, and I am okay with that. And so that's why I'm saying it's not really a criticism. It's if you were looking for resolution, this wasn't the one.
Yeah, but kind of, right? There was other resolutions. Yeah. Sorry.
Well,
snotty nose.
One thing that I did feel like was kind of a resolution was Dr. Minerva Daughter Chan getting randomly murdered by octopi. I thought that was really cool because we're doing like this whole book has been focused on, well, like we destroy
Mm-hmm.
systems and creatures because we don't really see them as in the way, or we see them as resources or whatever, and like that's it. Um, but the same could be done to us, and it reminds me of like the primitive version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when they like demolish Earth so they can build a bypass.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what the octopi will be in a million years or
Uh-huh.
whatever. But yeah, she was just in the way. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, we did not get clarity on the symbols. Shelby's bummed
mm-hmm.
about that. But there's this, hope of what they have to work towards.
Yeah,
And we at least know the song teller or whatever, Octopus, has made a direct connection with Ha,
right.
showing her
Her own
her
face.
own
Right.
face.
Yeah.
How wild.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of interesting because like a lot of creatures can't recognize like their own faces, right? Like
Yeah.
dogs don't really recognize their own reflection or something, but for something to be able to like then reproduce "this is you" is a pretty big deal. And especially to the point where like you can recognize that it's you, because we couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
We couldn't make a replication of another human being
No.
for a long time. you know?
No, I can't. Sorry, shape singer. What did I call her?
I don't remember.
Sorry.
Song singer.
Song singer. You get it. Um, right before we started the show, I was actually listening to an interview, or Ray Nayler just got on YouTube to answer some commonly asked questions,
Oh, cool.
and I will link that. I don't know. I'll link it in the box
Yeah.
below or something. Because it was only 12 minutes and it was interesting. Um, Definitely worth kind of listening to. I was kind of curious about those chapter beginnings, how minds work. Wait, what was hers called?
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Minerva Daughter Chan's book.
How the sea thinks or
And
something
then,
like
well,
that. Yeah.
Dr.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
Haas was how oceans think. Or yeah. Anyways, they were so complex,
Mm-hmm.
and I was just like, God. I mean, did he write 3 books? Did Ray Naylor write 3 books to write this one book?
Mm-hmm.
Not only does he have like
Mm-hmm.
3 storylines going on in this one book,
But he has like 2
but he
academic
has
papers.
2, yeah, whole
Yeah.
other books in
Yeah.
the book. And so someone else has also asked, like, how much more content was there in those other books? And he said, not really. There wasn't any. He said what he did with those was took other philosophical texts and reworded them,
Mm-hmm.
or rewrote them basically in a way that worked here.
Right.
So it was all stuff. He said that like his goal was if he could explain it simply and still keep it true and not dumb down,
Mm-hmm.
then that was his goal. And it was a way for him to say, I read these books so you don't have to.
Right. Yeah, sure.
And it was just, and I could tell sometimes, like while I was reading it, I was like, okay, I've heard this before, and I've heard this before, but not in
Yeah.
the context of ocean life, or not in the context of AI,
Right.
right? And so it all felt a lot familiar
Yes.
while I was reading
Yes.
it. And that's because it was.
Right.
That's what he did. That was really smart.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Very brilliant. It was a way to get like real information
Mm-hmm.
into the book for the readers. It was grounding in reality being applied to,
Mhm.
AI and marine life.
Yeah.
That was so smart.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important for books like this. I think it's easy for us to get in touch with the like ecology piece because it's easy to show, like killing a bunch of fish and how gross it is or something, right? Like you can make things nasty and then you feel something about it. But the philosophy of mind stuff is like much more esoteric, and it doesn't really correlate to anything that the normal person thinks about. And so being able to put it into a way where you're like, oh, okay, cool. I was looking forward to those next pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was done so well that had those pieces not been in the book still would have been interesting and good to read. But that created some background knowledge that gave readers something to cling to as they read the chapters. I mean, it was very well done.
Yeah.
Very well done. and important to build some kind of background knowledge so that people have something to attach to.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't follow, you're not going to follow. You're just going to give the book up,
Yeah.
So I really think that that's a good strategy for him to use to keep people engaged in the reading, to make them feel like they're learning something as they go.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that he talked about was the storyline with Aiko and the sea wolf.
Yeah.
And my brain worked so stupid. I was like, sea monster. And I was like, no, that's not what it was called. It's the sea wolf. People have asked, like, hey, is that true? The situation with the slavery and all that stuff. And he says that there's a documentary called, I have it written down somewhere. Ghost Fleets, that explores, thanks for hanging on there for me, that explores, human trafficking and slavery in these fishing boats and stuff. He says there's tens of thousands of people just in that industry alone being stolen.
I think that putting that aspect, this book is, I mean, it asks so many questions, and I really feel like the ecology piece is just like a secondary piece. I mean, but also not. It's like the most important piece, because ecology is a study of systems and how they interrelate and how they all survive because of each other, and that is what we are, right? We are part of an ecological system, even if we don't like to think of it that way.
Yeah, Dr. Haas said that.
But the slavery piece was interesting because we have this whole conversation about, like, well, is Evram human? But then we also have, like, but then that comes back around in the slavery thing, right? Like, because they are not treated as human or seen as human by the, by the masters, who we don't even ever see. It turns out the ship's owned by Diana.
Yeah,
like, that was really good.
AI captain.
Yeah, but
doing its own thing apart from the centralized mind,
But like we are able to dehumanize each other so thoroughly that the hope of being able to humanize something else, I think, would be really difficult. There was actually, this is the one part I highlighted before I switched over to the audiobook, but it was a conversation where Ha tells Evram that he is human, and it's because he participates in human systems and their human symbolic world and all that. And I think that makes sense to me, because, like, how are you part of a culture? You are part of a culture when you can participate in that culture. If somebody is, Chinese American, does that have anything to do with their genetics? Like, I mean, maybe, but not really. It's about my parents still do these things that they brought with them when they came here. But I'm also, I went to high school and I have, I have all these American cultural references, but I also have these Chinese cultural references, or whatever other culture you come from, and it's being able to live in both those worlds. And Evram is able to do that, and so he is therefore human. And in some ways, he may be more human than some humans, because there are some people who don't participate, in those things, or at least he may be seen as more human to somebody of a culture because he participates in that culture than somebody who does not.
I mean, he already is more human in terms of, like, socialization than was what's his name? Crap. The guy that was breaking into mines whose girlfriend got killed. The girlfriend.
Rustin.
Yeah, Rustin, thank you.
Yeah.
So the girlfriend who depends solely on her 0.5 for friendship is less human or less culturally included than Evram, who does have relationships with Altansa Teg and Ha and Dr. Minerva Daughter Chain. And so, like, and we saw this in Three Body too. And Greg Fox mentioned it in the comment section, but, like, in Dark Forest, at what point are they no longer human, those who explored out in space? At what point are we no longer culturally whatever we have been? And so we can't have things like Evram, or people like Evram, or my Google Assistant, or whatever, who is becoming more part of the culture than some other participants that are actually human.
Well, and you can also have a culture that is, like, what if there's and this is I haven't thought this through. I'm just saying it now. But like a culture that includes more than one species, right? Like you could,
Yeah.
there are plenty of cultures. I think of like India that respects animals in a different way that we do, and so then they have like tons of these animals running around, like
Yeah.
or the monkeys, right? So
Yeah.
like on the island, they were considered sacred, and so like the monkeys are just like running around everywhere doing their thing, and so then you have this culture that's interdependent.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought a lot about like speciesization because like what makes something a different species. If there's a lizard living in a valley and something happens and a river runs through that valley, they're the same species for a minute, but because they can't reach each other because they're on opposite sides, assuming that nobody like rides a log across or whatever, uh, at some point it's that difference in space that then creates a different species. And for a
Mm-hmm.
while you can you know intermingle or whatever. And to answer Greg Fox's question, at what point do they become a different? Do they become not human? It's almost immediately
Yeah.
because they are they might still be human, but they are a different
Yeah, I
species
was
at
gonna
this
say
point.
not human, but
Right.
some other kind of.
They're something different, right? In
Yeah.
the same way and Ha or Minerva Daughter Chan or someone kind of makes this point, but like, we killed off all these other species of human,
Mm-hmm.
and all those things were humans, right? They were Homo something,
Mm-hmm.
but they were a different thing, and a lot of that was just driven on by geographical boundaries again. It's the same way that like languages evolve, and like Europe has so many languages because there's so many rivers and so many mountains that people couldn't get over, and then they speciated. I thought about that a lot, especially after his question. So.
Yeah. There's a lot of chat. I'm just saying.
And I'm gonna say this too. You're right. Like cultures speciate as well. Our microphone is falling. Look at this.
Well, I noticed that it was like more
Hang
in
on.
the
I'm gonna get up, guys. I'm sorry.
in the
This is
video.
a problem.
It's just not tight. I didn't think it had started that low.
No, it definitely did not.
What happened?
We're not doing so great today.
We're doing fine.
But so cultures also speciate, right? Like and I think that's kind of interesting too because in a world like this one that we're exploring here, the culture they still have like the Tibetan culture and then they have Myanmar or and like whatever the other places, the Commonwealths and things like that. But in a world where you can be connected all the time, like the cross pollination becomes so common that the cultures I think would start to blend.
Mm-hmm.
And but you can have cultures that kind of like get marooned almost. Like Spanish come to America and then they get stuck here, so they keep doing Spanish things. And then maybe they meet somebody else and then that blends and becomes something different. But if being human means participating in human culture, well, what does that mean? In the human symbolic world, and there's definitely some baseline things, but that was all.
Okay, shifting gears.
Do it.
Altansateg, our golden flower,
Mm-hmm.
was really working with the Tibetans the whole time.
I love that twist because I don't know any of the Tibetans, but I think they're cool. Yeah, that was very cool. I like that.
Shelby says she doesn't understand her reasoning.
I'm not sure. My understanding, at one point they're talking about. I think it's when they're interviewing the guy that then gets the eye patch and is talking to Rustum later on. Whenever they're on the boat, like the cops are interviewing a dude on a boat, and he says there's a Russian who could do this, and he says, and then there's a lady in a lamasery who could do this. He's talking about Altansa.
Oh, did you catch that
Yeah.
at the time?
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, so no, I did not catch it at the time, but later on she says, I have always been working for them ever since I joined this lamasery. I think they're talking about her.
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, I think that that's neat. And, I've been thinking this whole time, like, the significance of her name, Golden Flower, and, what that can mean. And Golden Flower makes me think of, like little goldenrods and stuff, which means like allergies. So it's like this beautiful thing that can be very potent and deadly. But
Interesting, yeah.
she's working with the conservationists, and her little nature name works.
Yeah, but she's also a killer.
But she's also a killer.
But that's because she's part, like, and she understands, I think, like, her part of the system, you know, and she has this gloomy outlook on life that I don't disagree with, where, you know, basically everything is taken from something else, and all things are built upon death, and that's true, you know. Like, if that didn't happen, we would just keep getting more and more living things until there was nothing left or whatever. You know?
So, did they destroy the boat that Aiko was on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did the timelines in the book hop around, or?
So they did, though. The Aiko really does wash up at the end.
Yeah.
Right? But Rustum's story seems to be happening a little bit before, because Rustum broke into Evram's mind the day that Ha shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that we're there, my new thing. Okay, this one of our like motifs or whatever of empathy and just being able to like tap into the mind of somebody else on a metaphorical level to understand what someone else is going through. We have Rustum, who's literally tapping into the mind of others.
Right.
And the author talks about in his interview, you know, the concept of this empathy being like one of the most important themes of the book. Just that there's no effective communication or no successful communication without empathy.
Right.
And so it's interesting that Rustum has some empathy for Evram, taps into his mind and lets him know what's going on and closes that portal. What an amazing moment, right? Yeah. For Rustum. Where is he at the end of the book? Is he dead?
I don't think it says. He assumes that they're going to kill him, but so he kills the lady with the albaglass with her own drone.
I thought that was
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, that was really good. I like to think he is living out his little life somewhere.
Yeah.
Big chillin'.
I hope so. So, you know, for Evram, I think that was Evram's first contact that contained empathy in it.
Yeah.
That contact, that vision that he had with Rustum saying, you know, no one should be able to exploit you this way.
Right.
And I'm closing this loop, or I'm closing this portal. But what we thought was Evram's first contact with empathy was with Ha. Right. She gave him the cookie, and he's like, no one's ever done this for me before. She made physical touch with him, which at first like scared him, and she hugged him at one point, and he's like, no one's ever hugged me before. He's only ever been the world science experiment.
Right.
He's only ever had communication with other people that was questioning him to try to see if he could pass the test of being conscious, you know? So he's never had just regular connections with people until this moment. So he has, I think at the point that Rustum said, you're a real boy now, you know?
Yeah.
That was his leap into consciousness when he got to feel the impact of empathy and then further that for other people, you know? And he did speak to Ha with a level of empathy while they've been on this island together.
That's you made a Pinocchio reference, and now I'm thinking about it, there are more symbolic. I feel like there are more. I think there's a lot more ties into Pinocchio than probably he meant. But Pinocchio is very interesting because it follows like the hero's arc very closely and very literally. And I think I see some of those things there. So, for example, in Pinocchio, he literally goes to the belly of the whale, right, which is one of the steps of the hero's journey. And I think about, you know, in a way, Kandao is sort of the belly of the whale, but also when they go into the boat and meet the octopi, and they start to make these like realizations about themselves and ask themselves these deep questions and like, who are we and what do we mean? That is also, I think, a bit of the belly of the whale. But your point about empathy, I think, is, I mean, it's true, right? Like, if you cannot understand what it is like to be someone else, you cannot you can't communicate effectively, right? You just can't. And we saw that, I think, in not Children of Time, in Childhood's End, where the aliens there understood us, but like we couldn't see them because we wouldn't understand what their situation was kind of like. Um, I'm coming up on this training I have to do every year where I have to teach about trauma and like trauma response and understanding that people are just like a big bag of trauma responses in the most part, and that the species in general, and that all species in general
Mm-hmm.
are big bags of trauma responses with a lot more going on, but like on a very simplistic level, right? And by being able to understand that when somebody reacts negatively to you, you can, or in any way to you, you can begin to understand like why they are like that,
Yeah.
um, and like going back to the dog island thing or whatever, right? But like if you were trying to get your dog on a boat and it didn't want to go on a boat, and you were like, just get on the boat, right? It would make you upset. But like, what if that dog had been dropped off on an island one time, and like what I mean? Like that's a trauma response, and then you can be like, oh, okay, cool, let's not do that, right? He doesn't trust me or whatever,
Dr. Minerva, Dr. Chan's book at one point says there's two selves in the mind. The present self is the ship, and the other self is the current on which the vessel is born.
Mm-hmm.
And it's giving a comparison of how we can change. The present self, the ship, we can do pretty fast changes.
Mm-hmm.
And the self that is the current, that's slow change.
Mm-hmm.
That's change that takes the time of a river changing course,
Right.
know.
That's the trauma response self.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the childhood memories and upbringing, and yeah,
it's reflexes
mm-hmm.
and biology and ego protection.
And like I'm not verbalizing a lot of like that's just been like mulling around in my head
Mm-hmm.
as I think about like myself and like how I try to like change things sometimes, and like self improvement and those kinds of things. You can steer your ship, but you still have this current that you're fighting with, and you have to address both.
Yeah, I think in psychology, I guess you would call this like metacognition, thinking about thinking,
Yeah.
right? And I think a lot of like self help and stuff like that is like, okay, well, you wake up at 6 a.m. and you do this and you do that, and it's all focused on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and there's certainly value to that. But if you decide that you're going to turn the ship against the current and you don't understand the current, you will not go anywhere.
Right.
And there's so much to be said for slowing down and watching yourself, or
Mm-hmm.
watching yourself watch yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and taking as many steps back as you possibly can so that you can see where the current is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because so much of what that boat is doing is the current.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for like getting that out for me. Because it was all just like up in my head. But I think that that's so interesting to think of it that way. It's a wonderful visual for thinking about how our minds work. And I do think it's also cool that we see the ship and the current in Aiko.
Mm-hmm.
We see it with Evram.
Mm-hmm.
We see it with Dr. Chan.
I think we super see it with Ha.
And we super see it with Ha.
Because of her, she spends all that time talking about the boy in the prison and like her childhood experiences on that island.
Yeah.
And how that has changed the way that she is.
And destroying her .5.
Yeah.
And
And destroying the cuttlefish. Yeah.
we
There's so much current
yeah.
evident in Ha. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I think is really cool about this book is there's a lot of questions it asks and a lot of things to think about, but there's also really in-depth characters to explore and think about and connect to. They were easy to connect to, and they were easy to listen to and learn about, and they were interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to do both in a book. It's hard to have a very thoughtful book that also has good characters.
Right. Yeah, I want to loop back around to the ship and the current real quick for one more point.
Yeah.
But I think that the part of the important way of recognizing like what your own current is to be able to name it, and this is about like the symbolism and being able to communicate with, one of the other themes of this book. But like, and so we'll do this with each other, where we'll be like hanging out doing something, and I'll be like, I'm frustrated right now. and I'm just saying that, right? But by being able to name it, you are like naming that current, right? You are talking about like there's something happening,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the ship then looking at the current, being like, okay, here we can go, right? And so because I can acknowledge this, I can then react to it because I know what it is, and you can communicate it. And something about being able to communicate those sort of like deep things to other people helps us understand it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. What else you got?
The octopus attack was wild.
Big big fan.
And Altan Sateg had enough understanding of that situation to pinpoint why they were attacking.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
How about the octopus in the pool? I like always knew the octopus was in the pool, and it was weird that nobody else knew that.
Well, Ha knew.
But like it was there the first day she got there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like her. It was the shape singer's submersible. Right? Like
Yeah.
it was their laboratory. I thought that was
Yeah.
cool.
And watching the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's creepy. Well, I wonder how Eiko's Mind Palace is doing. There wasn't much talk about that at the end.
You know, it did come back around though, and it came back around in terms of Evram's inability to forget. And I can't remember now what they said, but they specifically made an allusion to not a mind palace, but it was a similar
Yes.
comment. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was
so
like,
it
oh,
kind
this ain't Eiko.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah. Oh, man.
I don't know.
Well, y'all are like killing it in the chat. I'm sorry, we are way behind.
No,
I mean, we don't even know what's going on. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah, we probably won't.
Like,
we
I'm
won't
just
pick
gonna
up.
like watch this and put me on mute, and so I can read the chat. This was really, really good.
Yeah.
And good is just such a dumb word to use, but that's all I got.
I'm definitely interested in reading more about this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea what they are and
Yeah.
if it's any good, but I would definitely be interested.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't feel like as attached to the octopus as I was attached to like the spiders in
Right.
Children of Time, but that's because the story was told through the spiders.
Right.
You know, we were meant to attach
Yeah.
to them.
I'm like rooting for the octopus, but that is the, and that's kind of interesting because Children of Time really does not get into that aspect of what is it like to be a spider, right? We had some very human spiders, and it was a fantastic story and it explored similar and related topics, but it didn't really explore sort of like the philosophy of mind.
Yeah.
It did a little bit with like the genetic memories and being able to pass those on.
But that's because they were created from humans.
Yeah.
So they were part human.
That's true.
They were human spiders.
Yeah, that's true.
They
That's
were
fair.
the children of humans.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
fair.
And so, and these are not. These octopus are octopus.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And they
How about
are octopi evolving from their own and not from humans. And so there is a difference there.
Yeah.
But yeah. How crazy. And if they're only on this island, the octopi, and they're only able to do this here, is it just this lone island of evolved octopi?
I suppose.
And so then where can it really go?
Yeah.
Is this a very limited evolution? I mean, like, right, there are ecosystems like the Galapagos, right, where it was known where like so many things evolved there and only they were just stuck there, right? Like
yeah.
they didn't really seep out into the wider world.
Yeah.
How sad.
I don't know. I mean, like they're already at like the tool making age or whatever, or they have writing basically, and so they may be on an accelerated path. But
And all week, I was very aware of phrases that we use that are built around our anatomy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, can you hand me that pen?
Yeah, but you're also like literally asking for it. You know.
Hand.
Yeah.
Hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, hand me.
Well, I don't
So
hand
what
it with
would
my foot.
an octopus would have to say, like, can you sucker me a pen?
Right. Yeah. Well, but it's more evident in things like,
can you tentacle me a pen?
yeah, it's more stand up for yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if something can't stand up?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or so the concept of like lying down on the job. Octopus don't lie down,
No,
right?
you're floating around the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or see you later. What if something has no eyes?
Right.
You know, I have been thinking about this in terms of the Galactic Senate in Star Wars. How that even work? That can't work. It's too much. There's people in jars. There's Wookiees. There's Jar Jar Bankses. It ain't working. It's too much. It's too much.
Too much for the universe translator. Oh yeah, I noticed that too. There's different flavors of Russians in this book. And Peggy was saying, like, you don't call it, I don't know how to say it. I've only ever seen it written. Tatar. Tatar.
Yeah.
You don't call them a Russian. Like, no. To the wider world, there's, like, flavors of Russian. It ain't. They're different. I felt like it was in this book. There was also maybe, and I'm probably not saying it right, but like a Cossack as well. Mm-hmm. I think that was in this book. I learned about Cossacks in The Most Dangerous Game, a short story that even if you've never read it, you know what it is because it's been like remade into 100 different things. Anyway. All right. What else we got?
Man, I don't know.
I feel like, we've only been doing this for 30 minutes.
It feels longer.
And we've talked about so much.
Yeah.
This is just one of those books that I think as the book club progresses, we'll come back to it and have like more understandings and...
Yeah. I love reading fun stuff and I like cutting up and everything, but this is in the vein of what got us started, asking like these big questions in a way that is relatable. And these are the sorts of books that I want to refer to people. Not only because it's enjoyable, but like I think this is going to make you think about something.
Mm-hmm. And I like reading for all of those reasons.
Yeah.
I can't do this all the time. I'm too simple. Sometimes I need a break with my little trash novel. But it just goes to show you that all books do have something to offer. Yeah. It doesn't always make you explore things and come to your own conclusions. Sometimes the conclusions are more pressed upon you.
Yeah.
But either way, you get that vicarious experience. You've broadened your world and you've learned something. Yep. The more you know. Ding!
Well, and like even going back to the empathy thing, I think books are a good way to help us with empathy. I really think that part of why Fourth Wing was so good is because it's told in the first person. I don't read a lot of first person stuff, and for Violet to be like, and then I did this and I did that and I did that and I did that. I think it really makes you are reading in the way that you speak to yourself, right? The narrative is done in the exact same way, and it makes it more relatable, I think. So.
We're gonna have to wait forever for the next Fourth Wing. Okay, so I was just like scrolling through the chat just for a second, and I heard read someone saying an octopus was pushing the mic down.
Yeah.
Okay, so was an octopus in her room?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was just like a lamp.
Yeah, I think so.
Ooh. At Halloween, the things that scare me the most are the things that my mind has already decided is not real. It is what it is, and it's not going to move. And then it moves. I lose it. I can't handle it.
Yeah.
That's an octopus, right? You are an octopus. You are just supposed to be noodling around in the water, just doing your little thing. Don't be something else.
Yeah. Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. Scary. Octopus are wild. All right. I don't have anything else. I'm sorry. I'm just rambling now.
No, that's okay. I don't mind having a short episode. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just a lot to process.
Yes.
And I think we've honestly hit on a lot of things in the previous weeks. This sort of just like wrapped up the story.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, it built very well. We were able to identify a lot of the central motifs at the beginning. Like we noticed the loneliness and, the detachment, how these people that we were following were not connected to the world around them. They were not able to use their empathy to have successful communication. We identified that at the beginning.
Before we even knew about 0.5s.
Right. And we were able to really track that throughout the book and see how not only evolution of the octopi, but also that deepening of understanding of what it means to be human.
Right.
And to be able to communicate.
Well, and the whole point about like why octopi are intelligent, but they don't have cultures because they were so insular, and that's what makes these particular octopi special, right? But it's the same. The same is true with humans, and we are only becoming more and more insular. And I made a comment last week about Greg Fox said Caves of Steel. That's the Isaac Asimov book where eventually people don't even ever see each other anymore.
Yeah.
And like you don't know your neighbors, and you don't know, and like you don't really see people as human because you don't have interactions with humans, and
And a cautionary tale here.
Yeah.
Like we need to hang on to that.
I think you purposefully have to try to go around other people, even difficult people, and be part of that world if you want that world to survive, which we all do.
Yeah.
We like that one. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just well written, well constructed, very thought provoking.
Yeah. Let's write him an
Nayler.
email. Let's invite him on the show.
What a guy. You're a stand-up fella.
Stand up.
Stand up.
With your legs.
Ah,
See what you did there.
float up.
I bet we can't get an author on this show because we're just not popular enough, but I bet we can get an octopus. I bet I can get an
Let's go
octopus.
to the aquarium and be like,
Sir.
we've read this book and here's what we learned. What do you think? Here,
I'll do it.
we'll put our phone up to the little tank and be like, here, listen to our episode.
There you go.
What if we showed the octopus at the aquarium the little symbols in the book,
And then he slashed our throats.
or gave us a piece of coral?
Or a human skull.
All decorated.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
sorry. That's what's going on in my mind all the time. Look, I went to the aquarium a while back, and I was all excited about playing with the little stingrays because they're like the puppies of the sea. And you can put your little finger in the water, and they'll come up and be like, hee, and like get a little pet or whatever. They would come towards me and be like, they would never let me pet them. They would go to everyone else, and they were just messing with me. A sea life is wild. Okay, I'm done.
Indeed.
I'm done.
Are you sure?
No.
I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us for this book and being with us this morning. We are reading Verity next by Colleen Hoover, and so we are going to be putting out our syllabus. Do we have that made up yet?
No.
Okay, so we're going to be putting out a syllabus as soon as we make it. It will be a change of gears, I am told. So
One of our book club members has already started it, and she said she doesn't even know what's going on. There's so much. There's so much.
is that my mom?
Mhm.
Okay. Hey, Ma.
Hi,
Thanks for hanging out.
Oh, man. Octopus with a glue gun and rhinestones.
There you go. Cool.
All right, guys.
Thank y'all very much. We will see you in 30 minutes or so for our syllabus.
Happy reading.
Bye.